Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our next conversation as part of Empowerthon. Now, if this is the first conversation you're joining us for relative to Empowerthon, Empowerthon is the inaugural fundraiser for the Parent Tween Foundation. And if you're new to Parent Tween Foundation, welcome. Parent Tween Foundation is the nonprofit leg of the Parent Tween Connection. I'm Clarissa Constantine, and I'm the founder. And I established Parent Tween Connection to be the place where parents go when they don't know where to go. So we aim to create community for parents as well as the professionals who support them. And the foundation is designed to help bridge the gap, the financial gap that is, that often exists between families and the help that they need. So our next guest, who is offering her time for this event and this fundraiser, is Deb Porter. Deb, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about what you're building. I'm excited to be able to share and be a part of it. Thank you for having me, for sure.
Absolutely. So Deb is the founder of an organization called Hearing Out Life Drama. She is a professional listener. Yes, it's amazing. Like, how often do you have somebody who, like, you're like, they just don't listen to me? I feel like I don't have anybody to talk to. That's Deb. And the cool part is that she's going to be with us today, or I should say she is with us today, to help us learn how to be better listeners. So one little bit of housekeeping. We are streaming live to our Facebook group, to our LinkedIn page, and to our YouTube channel. If you have questions and you want to participate, you want to ask questions as we go, tune in through our Facebook group. I do have it open on the other side so that I can watch and I can field questions as we go. And that is where we're going to be fielding questions from. So even if you're catching the replay and you want to comment, you want to ask questions and such, that's where you can go to be with her. So without further ado, Deb, thank you again. Number one, for your time, for your support. And number two, or maybe that's number three, for the insight that you're about to offer us. So when we put this out to the public and promoted it, we were like, my parents totally listen to me all the time and completely get me and understand me. Said no tween or teen ever. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's like, my parents just didn't get me, and my parents just didn't understand, or they didn't listen, or I just wish they'd listen and not try to solve everything, all the things, right?
Oh yeah, solve.
Exactly. So I know that you talk about like what you call the C.O.R.E approach to listening.
Yes.
Shall we start there?
Let's. That's
awesome.
This will be. If you're tuning in, I love starting with the meat of it first, so that way if you have to jump off, you have the really good stuff at the beginning. So
right.
C.O.R.E is an acronym, and it stands for Calm, Outcome, Relate, and Empathy. So the first piece of listening is really to establish your own calm. If you're not calm, there's no way you can listen. You simply will not be able to hear what they're saying. So you have to establish that first, and it is the most important piece. And as you're moving through the C.O.R.E and through a conversation, you want to keep checking back in with yourself. Okay, am I still calm? Because that's really why your teen is saying they don't listen to me, because that we get pulled off of our center, we get pulled out of our calm, and as soon as that happens, they know that we're not hearing them anymore. It's just gone. So that calm, that C of the C.O.R.E is critical. And then next is the outcome. So what is it the outcome that your team's looking for? What is it that they want from this conversation? If they're actually talking to you and engaging with you, what is it that they need from you? What is it that they want? What's the outcome? And so next is the R, the relatability, the relation piece. And so here is the really simple basic steps of making sure that you're tuned into them and you're actually understanding exactly what they're saying. So if they're saying something that doesn't make sense to you, that's where you ask questions to get that clarification. That's where you're wanting to validate them. And then finally, the E of C.O.R.E is empathy. And that's here where we're really trying to make sure that we're hearing their feeling and reflecting that back to them. So if, for example, we're talking about they're upset about something that happened at school, that we're really hearing it from their point of view and holding up that mirror of this is the feeling that I'm hearing. You're upset with your teacher or whatever student or whatever it is that happens. So We
Mhm.
want to make sure we reflect that back. That's the core of listening. And if you apply that in every conversation you have, your life will change.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm even thinking, like, I know obviously a parent tween connection, most of our conversations are geared toward how we interact with the teenagers in our lives. But as you were going through those, I was thinking about some conversations even recently that I've had with my partner,
Yeah.
right? Where it's like, oh, yeah, I saw that going off the rails because I knew one or the other of us wasn't calm.
Yep.
Right. And I like that you put that into a structure where I can be like, oh, okay, yep, I recognize that was the case, that I knew we weren't going to make any progress because one or the other or both of us was getting in our feelings about things. And we knew that I knew that it wasn't going to be productive. So can you dig in a little bit more now that we've got the structure?
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like you had a comment.
Yeah, when that happens, the best thing to do is hit the pause button. As soon as you feel yourself moving away from that calm, it's best to say, I can feel myself really struggling to stay with you here because I'm having my own feelings. Can we just take a quick break? And, I'll be back in 5 minutes. Or if you're really dysregulated, is the word that psychologists use. If you're highly dysregulated, then what you want to do is you say, you might need longer. You might need an hour. You might need a day, but then establish a time to say, okay, while I'm not calm right now, I intend to work on that in myself, and I'll come back and we'll re-engage and try again. And if you do that, especially with your teenager, it will be so impactful because they'll appreciate and understand that you care about them enough to really want to stay calm to listen. And making that effort makes a difference. Yeah.
Well, and then it seems to me that the other side of that coin is that as we, the adults, model that, then they're going to start mimicking that at some point, and we need to be prepared to honor that as well. That if they recognize that they need a pause, that they need to press the pause button.
Yeah.
How many times when we've got something that's a really, really triggering situation or a hot button issue for a parent, that you come back in here right now, right? You get back here because we're talking about this now.
Right.
That if we've been modeling this and then they present that back to us, that we need to be like, all right, you know what, I'm going to give you those 5 minutes because maybe I need them as well.
Yeah.
So I really like that. So can we dig in a little bit more on that? Can you give us some ideas of ways that we can stay calm? And by the way, plug for other folks who have some ideas as well. If you look back through the list of speakers, there's some other folks that have had some ideas that maybe are going to complement or underscore what Deb's about to share. But Deb, what do you recommend for when we're in that place? We hit the pause button. We go, I need 5 minutes. I'm going to step aside. What do I do so that I can be like, whoosh, to get back there,
Yeah, this is really where self-awareness is so important. Things like deep breathing can help. Things like a physical exercise. I mean, if you've got a lot of energy and there's a lot of energy around this, sometimes we need to go take a walk or, whatever physical, basketball, whatever floats your boat with the physical aspect, but to discharge that physical energy that's built up. Because if you're not able to stay calm, you have to get back to that, and getting rid of the energy is part of it. So those are a couple of things that can help, and ultimately, you know yourself best. So hopefully by now as an adult, hopefully you know how to get yourself back there. And the trick is, once you figure that out, then to be able to hold on to it through a conversation. That's really the goal.
I'm actually going to make a reference to one of the conversations that we had on Friday, I think, with Kelly Haw talking about stress management. One of the things that she mentioned, to your point about physical activity, is that it actually takes our nervous system 90 seconds to process an emotion. And so she actually recommends vigorous exercise for even as little as 90 seconds, which if you've just said, I'm going to take a pause for 5 minutes,
yeah,
that will fit within that time frame. So whether
absolutely.
it's like go, like you said, shoot hoops or run up and down the stairs, or don't put a fist through the wall, but like maybe just like bang on a pillow or something, right? Like beat on a pillow or something to get that feeling out. I like that idea.
Yeah, shaking. I would rather than hitting something, if you can just even shake your body, like to discharge it, just like wiggle, jumping up and down, and anything. I think aiming frustration at something else can be startling, especially if the teen didn't go far enough away from the conversation is seeing this. You want to model appropriate behavior, right? You want
Sure.
to, and actually, it's proven scientifically that screaming into a pillow isn't as effective as having a conversation with somebody. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So then outcome. You said we want to stay focused on the outcome. And you said it's about what the other person needs. Can we dive
Yes.
into that a little bit more?
Yeah, so let me give an example. I have a person that I've worked with, and her son went through a breakup. And when her son came to her, she said to me afterwards, because I had taught her about the core, and she said, Deb, I really had to stop and really put myself back to what you told me so that I could help my son because I really wanted to. But she said, I wanted to start. I had things going on in me, and so I needed to take a breath and figure out what he wanted from me. And so I stopped and I asked, and she's like, and I'm so glad I did because it changed the whole dynamic of things. And he it helped him to know that I was there to support him, even though I wanted to go wring, the girl's neck for whatever she had done to him. She was able to stay present and follow through with what her son needed from her. And it was really, really, really impactful in their relationship. And I was really happy that she shared that with me because it's just so powerful and important. When we know where they're starting from, it helps.
Mm-hmm. And I've found that sometimes something as simple as saying, do you need an ear or do you need help finding a solution?
Yeah.
Can at least be a starting place because sometimes they don't want us to fix it. They don't want the adults' input. They just need a sounding board.
Right.
They just need to feel held emotionally, like not like the teenage version of a hug, I guess you could put it, because sometimes teenagers are a little bit standoffish about physical contact.
Yeah.
But just to have that opportunity to be like, I just need to get it out. I just need to have somebody help me work through it mentally, not necessarily try to fix the situation.
Yeah, because really that's part of their journey as teens. That is the stage of life they're in, learning how to do that for themselves. And so if we just rush in to fix it all the time, it may not at all be we're taking away their power essentially.
Correct.
And so but if they so that's why it's important to ask, what is it that you want and need from me right now, and
Mm-hmm.
what outcome do you really hope for? And when you start with that, it's so powerful because then they really know your intent is to help them with what that is and not bring your own agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. So then you said the R was relationships.
Relate.
Or relate. Okay.
Relate. Yeah, relate. So this one is really making sure that you're understanding what they're telling you. So they're at this point they're diving in, they're unloading, and they're all of this. And you may have questions, and what you want to make sure is you're really understanding their point of view. So you want to relate to where they're at. So yeah.
So I can see this piece being particularly helpful when we've got a situation where there's been behavior that is less than what mom or dad might have liked.
Yeah.
Whether it's they were at a party and things went down that they didn't, that are less than desirable, or something that I've heard from a couple of parents lately is kids have been caught shoplifting, or
Yeah.
again, things where there could be legal implications.
Right.
And it's, I think, the calm, like staying calm in this space of like, look, we're here to help the kids. We're not here to annihilate them, right? Even if the urge is strong to just rail and be like, whatever were you thinking, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
But in the relate, really trying to figure out where they, like, what they were thinking and what
Yes.
was going on. And like, okay, you were, an example that I had in another conversation was like, you walked back and forth past this store and you saw the shoes in the window and you really, really liked them. And you went in and you actually tried them on. And then you had them in your hand and your friends wanted to go get food and you forgot that you had it in your hand. Like, it is plausible that that could have happened.
Yes.
Okay, well, if that's the case and you didn't really intend to, well, it sucks that you got caught with them in your hand. We now have this to deal with, but that's going to change the perspective that we have
Yes.
when we take the time to understand and relate and be like, okay, well, if that's really the case, that you just genuinely forgot that you had them in your hand, then I think it's going to help calm the parent down in that circumstance. Like, we still may have the legal situation to deal with, but maybe we're not as angry or something like that.
Yeah, and the relatability piece, that's really where you have to make sure you're holding on to that calm from the beginning, because this is really where you're trying to get to that point of view of your teenager, and this is where it's most likely to get pulled off. And so making sure that you have that within yourself and you're really listening to what they're telling you happened, what their feelings about it are, so that you're really dialed in to their experience and validating that.
And validating it. So my instinct is, as I'm visualizing a conversation like this, or having been on the kid side of this,
Yes.
is when the adult then is asking questions in an effort to understand, right, and to relate, to get that foundation, it can feel to the person on the receiving end of the questions like you're kind of on the question firing squad.
Yeah.
Which,
Lecturing. Yeah. And it's not lecturing though, it's not the firing squad thing. It's really asking a question and then waiting for the answer, and not giving them time to draw it out. Yeah, we don't want them to feel like they're in front of a firing squad. That's not what we're going for.
right, or like they're being interrogated or something
Yeah.
like that, right? So
Yeah.
do you have any suggestions of how to position those questions in the effort of establishing that relatability so that it lessens the likelihood? I mean, perception is reality. We can't control how somebody else receives an experience, right? But do you have any suggestions about how we can ask those questions so that it feels somewhat less like they're being interrogated?
So I usually start with, I heard you say. So it's, I heard you say this. Is this right? So it's asking the question from my point of view, making sure that I'm understanding exactly what they said. So I heard this is what you said. Is this what you meant? Is this the experience that you had? And usually that's gentle enough that that it works. Doesn't always. I mean, if either, remember, if either one of you gets pulled off your center, that pause button is okay to hit.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I can see that for me in a situation like this, it would be helpful to literally like write notes, because I can get like, that would help me stay centered and
Mhm.
stay focused. And um again, notes, not like transcription. But it would help me be like, okay, these are the facts that I just heard. Did I put them together correctly?
Yeah.
Do you think that there's a possibility though of disconnect if somebody's not like if they're writing like that, or maybe even like taking notes in a phone app? Do you think that there's a possibility that the kiddo is going to feel like you're not really paying attention to me?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend. I definitely would not recommend a phone. I do think that if you said ahead of time and established the boundary before the conversation really started, I'm going to write notes so that I can make sure that I don't lose my mind and my train of thought. That definitely can help, but you want to make sure that it's established before the conversation begins, so they understand why you're doing it, and that the intent is not that you're writing a laundry list of their faults. You want to make
Sure.
sure they understand why you're doing it, and that it's your tool and it has nothing to do with them.
And maybe if it's the first time that you're trying it, that you're like, hey, look, I want to make sure, I want to try something new so that I can try to keep myself calm and centered and focused and really supportive. I'm going to grab some paper so that I can make some notes. I could also see for myself that I would, you said ask a question and then give them the space to answer.
Yeah.
I would want to have that as a way to record my own thoughts or put a note down about my own thoughts so that I could come back to it at an appropriate time. Because otherwise, I know I will lose those thoughts. So, okay.
Yeah.
I like the questioning.
Yeah. Yeah. I think definitely, having a pad of paper. I actually have a runaway freight train brain that's coming out. It's a 7-minute video. It's some additional help. People follow me on LinkedIn. They'll get to see that on Tuesday if they want to
Awesome.
sign up for it. but it's definitely, and we talk in there about the best way to use a notepad in a conversation so that you could do that. So yeah.
Awesome. I will definitely be tuning in for that because I know I need to do that. I know that's how my brain works. So, all right. And then empathy.
Yeah.
Can you dive a little deeper into the E in CORE?
So if it's difficult for you to get to the feeling, then it's for your own feelings, it's going to be hard for you to understand your team's feelings. So working on your own feelings on a regular basis is a really good idea. But if you can try to really understand what it is, if we'll just go back to the shoplifting example, right? So what was the teens feeling after this happened? How did the teen feel after that happened? And if the teen isn't saying, I felt shame, I felt guilt, I mean, if they can't draw that out, then trying to, again, help them understand what it is that they feel will help them to feel heard. And so that it can be tricky because you don't want to, you need to make sure that you're giving back the right feeling. And if it's not the right feeling, they'll probably tell you, no, that's not it at all. My teens did. No, that's not it. It's this. But try. I mean, if you're not sure, try. Say, well, I think maybe you're feeling this. Is that right? And, and if it's a yes or no, I'm feeling this. Well, okay. Then let's work with that feeling. So.
A lot of folks don't necessarily even know where to start when it comes to talking about feelings because it's not something that socially has been overly acceptable for a lot of folks. We didn't necessarily grow up, if you cry, don't you cry, or I'll give you something to cry about, that kind of an idea.
Oh, yeah.
So for folks who don't necessarily have that foundation, it's hard to do something that you've never been exposed to. Any suggestions of where to start?
Yes, the Center for Nonviolent Communication has a feeling word list that I highly recommend. You can find the link on our website, but it's a feeling word list. I actually have it printed out and it's available. It lives next to me almost all the time in my office. And if I get stuck and I can't identify what this feeling is, I'll go to the board and I'll say, okay, what is it here? And having that board to or a piece of paper. For a long time I even kept the app open on my telephone. And I said, okay, I'm out somewhere and I've got this thing going on. What is the feeling? And that really would help me because it's on. There's feelings when your needs are satisfied and feelings when your needs aren't satisfied. And so that's a really great place to start to try to figure out where you're starting from. And I also highly recommend if it's new to you and you had that upbringing, like Clarissa talked about, certainly I did this work, commit to it and take some time and set an alarm on your phone and start checking in with yourself 2 or 3 times a day. You can even tie it to meal times and just ask yourself, okay, what am I feeling now? And work at identifying it in yourself. And that will amazingly over time, it's like building a muscle that will grow. It will grow. So you get stronger.
And I think that could be something cool to, again, start conversations with your kids. So many of the things. I was at a high school graduation party today with for actually a student that I had worked with, and I was talking with other parents, who were there to support the teen, and we were talking about look, if we're not talking about these things with our kids, either nobody is or somebody is, but we're not able to influence the conversation as the adults who care most about them. And so it's really on, parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, the family circle in a lot of cases, or the mentors, to have these conversations. So I love the idea of hey, start checking in with ourselves about it and bring the kids into the conversation, maybe even just once a day. Hey, I'm trying this new thing. Let's do it together. Or, do you want to do it with me? Or take 2 emotions and be like, hey, how would you describe or define the difference between this emotion and that emotion?
Some of them are very subtle. Sometimes it can be a really subtle thing. It's fine. And at that point, then you get into fine tuning that can be really interesting conversation.
Yeah. I love it. All right. So thank you for diving into the core of listening, the calm, outcome, relate, and empathy. One of the other points that I know you wanted to talk about was how to actually be there when they want to talk, and how that opens up more opportunities for them to want to talk.
It's that consistency of being, when they're ready, it doesn't matter what's going on in your world. If you're committed, maybe you do have to say, give me 5 minutes and I'll be right there. But then take that 5 minutes and get there, so that they really do know that you're going to follow through and be present to listen.
Mm-hmm.
That matters so much. If they say, hey, I have something to talk about, if you can set whatever you're doing aside and really just like pay attention, that matters. It matters so much. The phone goes away, the TV goes off, everything else, and you can just be there. Great times to do this too are also in the car. Some of the best conversations with teens happen in the car.
Yeah, they do.
So make sure. I mean, it gets harder as they get older teens, and they're going off on their own. But especially the tweens and the younger teens, making the space so that they, if you can dial in when they're ready to talk, then you'll find that it builds trust, and that trust will build more, and it will build more, and it's that scaffolding that you're making so that they actually can build around it. It's phenomenal. Yeah.
Well, and I see, some of these memes going around on social media about, like, if you don't treat the little things, or if you don't take the little things seriously and give them what we as the adults would perceive as the little things, right? That if we like poo-poo them or don't dial in, like you're saying, when it's less things of lesser import, as it were, right, or lower importance, that if we don't treat those with respect, then they won't come to us with the bigger stuff down the road.
Yeah. Why would they?
Absolutely.
I didn't. To be really honest, I didn't.
Right.
It matters. Yeah.
Well, and that makes me think of a conversation we had with Renee Sinning as part of Empower-thon last week as well, where she was talking, she has what she calls the triangle of trust. And it's trust in yourself as the parent or as the adult in the situation, but also your trust in your teenager. And potentially, most critically, is your teenager's trust in you. And the listening is such an important component of building their trust in you.
Yes.
Along the way. So awesome.
It's foundational. Yeah.
Awesome.
It really is.
I love it. And so much of what we've talked about, Deb, like I said, is not just about working with teens and tweens, but it's applicable to any relationship, whether it's your partner, if you have one, or a spouse, your friends. It works in the workplace too.
Absolutely.
I know a lot of the services that you offer are actually to businesses.
Yes.
For their employees. I mean, what brilliant services what a brilliant service that is for a company to offer to their employees, because if the employees just need a place to vent, or to get, just to talk in the middle of the workday, like, what a great resource for them to be able to access. So that's awesome.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up. We're going to say thank you, Deb, again, for being here, for your support, for believing in the mission of Parent Tween Connection and Parent Tween Foundation, especially. And we actually have a little bit of a friendly competition going on with our Empower-thon speakers. What we're offering to our Empower-thon speakers is the one who is the fundraisingest. It's a word now, in case you were unclear. It's like winningest, but fundraisingest. Basically meaning whichever speaker helps us raise the most money individually. We will take 20% of the donations that come in through their link, and then contribute that to a family-focused organization of their choice, because there are so many amazing organizations out there doing fantastic work. We can't do it all ourselves, and we want to work with others. So, Deb, you had mentioned, I'm double checking here, that if you are the fundraisingest participant, that you wanted 20% of your generated donations to support Women's Space, which is in Rockford, Illinois. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Oh my goodness, Women's Space is phenomenal. It's not just for women, but it was intended to be the support for women that would then spread out into the community. They've got art for kids and teens. They do programs, and there's yoga, there's drumming, it's a women's center that's centered around development. It was very helpful to me. back in my late 20s, early 30s. And so I would love to be able to get back there.
That is awesome. I'm so excited to have such an array of resources and to learn more about all of these other organizations that are doing such awesome work. So, Deb, again, thank you. I appreciate you as a human and for the work that you're doing. And I so appreciate your time as part of Empowerthon. Thank you so much.
And you, Clarissa, have a great day. And
Bye,
thanks
everybody.
to those who listened. Bye.